You know exactly what you want to say, and then the room is turning around to you, and somehow you just can't get those words out of your mouth. Your mind goes blank, or maybe your point just gets tangled, or you hear yourself starting a little bit too late with a version that's already diluted than what you want to say. And because that moment is so visible to the people in the room, they often leave the meeting just thinking that your problem is a confidence issue. But confidence is actually too simple of a label for what is actually happening with you. And for a lot of quiet, really thoughtful professionals, especially in senior leaders settings, that issue is much more layered than that. You're not just trying to speak, you're navigating the pressure that you feel, the hierarchy that you unconsciously actually aren't even aware that you're a little bit timid about. And on top of that, you're self monitoring. All of this is just years of conditioning about what is safe to say and when to say it. So, in this video, I want to walk you through what is really happening when you freeze in meetings and why this pattern can actually change much more sustainably than you might think. If you're new to this channel, my name is Josephine. I'm a career growth and leadership coach. I specifically work with high-performing professionals who are already trusted for the work and they're being respected for what they bring to the table and often already operating at a really high level behind the scenes. And what they typically struggle with is not their capability, but it's just years of learning what was safe for them. And what was safe for them was their quietness. Now they're in their careers, they get into a meeting with senior leaders and more visible conversations where perception really matters. And the way that they show up in those particular moments don't fully reflect the quality of their thinking. And that disconnect for them is really frustrating. And over time, it can start to feel really personal, like something is just wrong with me. So I really want to take the time to simplify this topic. Because when people keep saying to you, you just need to speak up more, it really misses a deeper issue entirely. And when you misunderstand the problem, you usually end up working on the wrong solution. So one of the biggest misunderstandings around speaking up is the idea that the whole challenge lives inside that one moment itself. So people are thinking, I just need to get better at speaking up when the opportunity comes, like this particular opportunity. But by the time that the opportunity comes around, a lot has already happened. Your body has already assessed the room, your brain has already started scanning for the risk, and your attention has already shifted from your actual message to everything that could possibly go wrong. So if you say something bad, or you say it too slowly, or you say too much, too little, or say something that actually might make you look less capable than you are. And that's why the work doesn't start when the spotlight lands on you. The work actually starts much earlier. So it starts with your relationship with your own voice. It starts with how clearly you understand your value. It starts with whether you believe you're there to perform for approval or to contribute to perspective that actually belongs in the room. Because when that footing is shaky, the moment actually gets much harder than it needs to be. And so for many people, especially those who are struggling more in front of senior leaders, this is tied to a very old pattern. So a lot of us grew up with the idea that we have to respect hierarchy or elders, not speaking out of turn, being really careful and prepared and making sure that you don't get things wrong. So those patterns might have helped you become more responsible and thoughtful and excellent at what you do today. And that might also be part of why your voice gets harder to access when the stakes feel high. So when someone is telling you that this is just about confidence, what actually gets left out is that you might be contending with years of unconscious learning about authority, visibility, and safety. And knowing this really matters because it changes the way that you actually relate to the problem. So you stop treating yourself like someone who's just failing, and you start seeing that there is a pattern here that can actually be understood and changed. And once you start to look at it that way, the next question becomes, what is actually happening in those particular moments when you freeze? And for most people, freezing in front of other people, especially more senior leaders, is not just like a random coincidence. It actually follows a pretty predictable sequence. So the first thing that happens is that the stakes get inflated. So your brain registers the moment as something really important, really visible, and full of possible judgment. So the room then may be completely ordinary from the outside, but internally it really feels like it's something much bigger. And once that happens, your nervous system will respond accordingly. So your heart rate picks up, your breathing gets really shallow, your body tightens up, and that language becomes harder to access because the point that felt really clear just about 30 seconds ago is now so far out of reach. It's not because you aren't smart or thinking on your feet. It's because the physiology always goes first. And then on top of that, many people shift their attention away from the message and onto themselves. And so instead of staying with what do I need them to understand, their mind moves into just pure performance. So how do I sound more polished? Do I sound strategic enough? How do I just land this point quickly? How do I make sure that this lands really well? Or what if they disagree with me? What if saying this makes me feel unprepared? Also, when all of that is happening all at once, the mind gets really crowded and it becomes really hard to think clearly while also editing yourself in that real time. So that is where perfectionism tends to make things even worse. A lot of people are not actually struggling because they have no thoughts. They're struggling because they believe the first sentence has to come out so polished and so impressive and so well formed. So they keep revising internally what they have to say. And then that window of opportunity then closed on them. Then they leave that meeting and they tell themselves a story about what just happened, and it reinforces who they think they are. Like, I'm really bad at this. I never say it right. Or maybe I'm not actually as strategic as I thought. And that is so painful because the experience in the room is just one thing. And the meaning that you attach to it afterwards is what keeps this loop and pattern that you're experiencing alive. And this is why I really want people to be more careful with the word confidence, because sometimes confidence is definitely involved, yes, but a lot of what people call a confidence problem is really a mix of your threat response, how you respond to hierarchy, perfectionism, and overthinking, all just happening at the same time. And when you understand this pattern, you stop moralizing that experience. You're going to stop treating it like it's evidence that something is just wrong with you. And so if this is describing your experience, I want to give you something really practical. I put together a free resource called The 7 Scripts for Leadership Presence. It's designed to help you say what you mean with more clarity and authority, especially in the moments where you would usually start overthinking and editing yourself. And you can grab this guide in the link below. So one of the most helpful shifts is actually moving away from the idea that you need to impress the room and toward the idea that you need to communicate one clear point. So that sounds really simple, but it changes a lot when you're able to do this. It brings your focus back to the message. It gives your brain a track to run on, and it lowers the pressure to have to perform and raise your ability to stay connected to what you actually want to say. So it might sound like going into a meeting with your main message, why it matters to the business, 1 or 2 supporting points, and one simple way to open the floor for discussion. And this kind of structure is helpful because it helps to anchor your thought in the moment and it calms your nervous system. Otherwise, it would start to pull you off course. And the more that you're able to practice really simple frameworks to start voicing yourself strategically, then that's when you can start to make sustainable change, because once you actually verbalize and make your presence known in the room, you start to feel things are possible. Every single time you speak up, you're learning how to make your thinking more accessible under pressure in a way that actually feels like you. So if you tend to freeze in meetings, especially around senior leaders, I want to leave this video with a more accurate understanding of what may be happening. So you might be feeling the pressure of the moment, but you may also be dealing with inflated stakes, old conditioning around authority, and a nervous system that's reacting before your words can even catch up. And the habit of having to edit yourself on the spot all the time really gets the message that you want to convey buried before it's even ever spoken. So this is why this can feel so discouraging when you know that you have something valuable to contribute. It also happens to be why change is possible, because it's really about understanding the pattern well enough that you can stop reinforcing it and start creating a different condition for yourself. And you can learn to speak up in a way that feels authentic, and you can build trust in your own voice. And you can do it without becoming someone you're not. I'm going to show you in the next video exactly where that change begins, how to create the right conditions to speak up at work, especially when you know the pressure of the moment is actually where things usually tend to fall apart. For now, download the 7 scripts for leadership presence, and I will see you in the next video.